your considerations when it comes to schooling? You know, you're looking for your kids. If you're brave enough as a grandparent to involve yourself in those kinds of family discussions, is it a strong education? Is it a great school community? Affordability, prestige? Do you maybe want to support the old school tie and drag the kids and grandkids through the same system you were through? Well, it seems that more and more families in New South Wales are opting to leave the public sector, enrolment dropping to 62.9% in 2023. That's the lowest share of students attending state schools in the past 2 decades of reporting. So is there something going on that we can put our finger on? Dr. David Roy is a lecturer in education at the University of Newcastle and has been good enough to come on and reflect this morning. David, good morning.
Good morning, Paul. Good to speak to you.
Is there a discernible difference in outcomes between public and private schools? Is it measurable? Can you say that one offers a better education experience than the other?
I guess it's what you want to term as an education experience. When it comes to, say, Year 12 results, we find that the schools that probably get the best results in New South Wales are the selective public schools, which are kind of like private schools on the sly, because only selected people can get into them, and it's another form of inequity and segregation. But when you look at the general public schools in comparison to majority of independent Catholic, the independent Catholic do very well in the results because of a multitude of factors that feed into that.
It gets quite expensive, of course. We're hearing of annual tuition fees of 40, sometimes 50 and upwards, thousands of dollars. I don't know how families afford that. But I mean, you know, if it's a valuable component in your estimation and essential for the upbringing of your children, many people would find the money, I guess.
Yeah, you've got to remember, those are the elite public kind of private schools. There are also really good private schools within the Hunter region where the annual fee is about 12,500 to 13,000 a year, a lot more. So there's a balance across them all as well.
And the Catholic schools are down around a few thousand, you know, so, you know, we're lumping all of them in together. We're calling them the non-public schools. So you could understand why someone would see that if they valued, you know, Christian ideals, for example, they could find $3,000 or $4,000 a year to send their kids to a Catholic school, for example. So what about all of the other stuff, the stuff that's harder to measure, like the prestige and the employment opportunities? Does it make a difference in 2024 that, you know, you've got a certain school tie?
I think it actually does. I think it's made a difference for hundreds of years, that old boys or old girls or old school network. And it does get brought up. I'm one of the unusual people from Scotland originally, where independent schools are highly unusual. And I went to one, and I was shocked when I would go for job interviews that I would be more likely to be employed because of my old school ties. And it kind of quite offended me in some ways, and often I didn't want those jobs because I don't believe in that kind of nepotism. But there are...
You said I've got to get out of this country. Apparently Australia is an egalitarian community. I'm heading there.
Well, the really interesting thing is it does create opportunities. The independent schools can give you experiences that the public schools can't. They also cost, and that creates further divide in the community. And we do have one of the most divided, inequitable systems of education in the world, which is quite ironic for a country that bases itself on the concept of the fair go, because it's not a fair go. If you have money, you can get a particular type of education which will open up doors that other schools won't, and it kind of keeps feeding the same system. So we have a big problem, and it's not just about funding, though that is part of the issue.
David, and we focus a fair bit on the elite schools. Again, there's a school in Sydney that's got a double level pool, one stacked on top of the other. I don't know that they've ever produced an Olympic swimmer, you know, so obviously that's not the important. It's not supremacy within the sport, and that's not the primary motivator for having these, you know, rather exclusive and expensive facilities.
No, it's just about giving people experiences and opportunities and to network with each other and to make them feel special so they kind of go into society thinking that they're good. It gives that confidence. It gives you, there's opportunities within curriculum to try out things that you don't get the opportunity in some of the state schools. And so it just keeps feeding that cultural capital idea. And I understand why parents send them there. It also leads to interesting differences within staffing, because the independent schools can offer, shall we just say, additional financial benefits or time resourcing or resources generally to staff, which make them more appealing. So when it comes to people choosing which school they teach into the kids, the independent and Catholic sector is very attractive, which means they don't struggle to the same degree as the public sector with the ongoing teacher shortage.
See, a principal in a public school can't say, listen, you're doing a really good job, I'm going to pay you a little bit extra. You know, there are review processes, of course, and if you jump above a barrier, then, of course, you will be rated at a higher level. But I imagine that it's like all public services, that there is a brain drain towards the private sector.
Absolutely. That is absolutely the factor. I've worked in public, I've worked in Catholic, I've worked in independent, one of the elite schools down in Sydney. And when I worked in the elite school in Sydney, I was doing the same activities I did kind of extracurricular in the elite school. But because I did that, I got a 20% bonus on my wage. I also had unlimited resources, that I actually had a budget I couldn't spend because I like to do things on the cheap. And so
more of your heritage, of course, without stereotyping.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes there's an element of more creativity when you get kids to do things and they learn more, rather than just paying for some professional to come in and do the school show for you, but getting the kids to do it. Sometimes that financial limitation actually increases academic achievement and awareness. So there is that inequity, and we're going to have to look at massive factors if we want to change that. And the funding issue is becoming more apparent when we realise that public schools are being underfunded to their minimum standard, while a lot of independent schools are getting extra.
Dave, could I just ask you, as someone who's in the sector, what's your feeling about staff shortages and the way the state government is addressing those challenges? Are you confident that there will be some resolution, or is this the future for us?
No, I don't think it's the future. I think it's a long-term issue that is worldwide within English-speaking communities. I think there are some good things happening. I know here, because we're a rural university in Newcastle, that we've introduced a new 1-degree graduate diploma to get people back into the workforce. But if we want people to be teachers, we've got to make the job more appealing, because we actually have to have people not just say there are opportunities to teach, but make them want to come in and seize those employment opportunities. Until we change the status that we have for our teachers, start to recognise how important education is in the world, and that therefore means lifting the resourcing and the infrastructure of schools and the kind of the work management that goes on within schools and workload, we're never going to get staffing. So we have to make it a desirable occupation, the way they have done in many Nordic countries.
Yeah. Why would you be a teacher when you can buy a couple of bikinis and become a social media influencer on double the money,
I don't bikini, but that's just me personally, Paul, but thanks for the compliment.
Good on you, David. Thank you.
Pleasure.
There's Dr. David Roy, who's a lecturer in education at the University of Newcastle.